we shall do another 1 hour, paper 3, as per the request. And then paper 1 will be done on Friday. So please observe those changes. They are for the better, and as we have always opted to share with you. So today we want to continue with this particular things we were looking at last time. You remember that we were working out on statistics last time, and that is where I want us to move. We were moved as far as looking at quite a number of things. But like I said, that for statistics, for any student who is to excel in this geography paper, you must be able to pass this paper, and you must also be able to pass this number 1, which is the only number which is given. So we went through some of the bar graphs and explained what it calls for you to do to work out. And we also gave the statistical information about these bar graphs. And then we explained how you get the scale. We drew up one of them. And we were looking at some others which have to do like the procedures. How do you get to there? We said that there are many things that you look at. You have the dependables and also the independent variables. And I remember explaining all of them. We went through this, those of you who were around last week. So we said before you get, for example, if you want to get the scale, you get the highest value given, you divide it by the number that you choose, divide it to be able to get 1 unit for everyone square, so that you represent it on the vertical scale. And you remember we went through this information, much as we also explained that temperatures usually are not good representatives, especially in this, but it was just an example, if you remember. Now, I want us to switch on from here. There are questions that you have already seen explaining. Maybe they ask part A, and then part B, they ask you what are the merits and the demerits. Sometimes what are the advantages and the disadvantages of bar or line graphs. Now, it is important that students get focused. That question 1 is sometimes has 3 sections. It has A, draw, maybe a bar graph or a simple bar graph. Then B, what are the advantages and disadvantages? Sometimes they give it 5 marks, sometimes 6, sometimes 4, depending. And then maybe the other part can be the trend, or they can still choose to say, give maybe factors that have contributed maybe to a particular variable that has been identified, or what brings up the changes in weather, or if it is information that is giving a cash crop growing and something of the kind. So today we want to look at the advantages. Please, I want to start with that in most cases, advantages, you don't need to explain them. You don't need to explain. You are just like outlines. But it is important for an advanced level student to know that before you start, you make an introduction by saying, maybe the following are the advantages as explained below. Assuming they have asked advantages and disadvantages. Then you say that they simplify, they are simple to draw. Why do we say they are simple to draw? Because you don't need a lot of tasking yourself. So it's one of the advantages. And you will actually appreciate when, as we go alongside to find out some of the areas. Then they are also simple to interpret as compared to compound bar graphs and others, as we shall see them. When you critically look at this, you will find out that you can easily look at a simple bar graph and understand that these are the values for this, and on this side it is this, which may not be the same with the circular graphs, which may not be the same with the tubes, squares, and the other methods that we shall look at. So it becomes also an advantage. Then we also saying that the other advantage is that it also takes little time or less time when you're drawing. There are methods that we shall look at a later stage, like maybe the compound pyramids, you look at maybe the spheres, that will require a lot of time and to take. For this particular bar or graph, you'll need little time to do up everything in this. Then the other one is that they give visual impression if well drawn. Visual impression is that if you have drawn this kind of graph, you should be able to understand that I'm looking at this, and when you look at it, it will actually give you the impression, it will give you a thinking of looking at it and then saying, I think it is something. So that's why I was saying that it's also one of the advantages. Then the other one is that it is also an advantageous to people who could be having issues of calculations. It does not require a lot of calculations. The simple calculation that can be there maybe is looking for the scale, but which we said you get the highest divided by the units you want. It may not be like other methods we shall look at where you may need maybe to first look at this, go through this and the rest of the thing. So it is easy. It is user friendly to every student, even the one who has biases in aspects of mathematics or some other thing. So that's why we are saying that it favors, especially because it takes little, or it involves little calculations. Then the length of the bars measure the value of items of a given unit. You are able to see, because you remember when we were looking at some of them, we shall later on look at some of them down there. You can easily be able to tell that this bar runs to this extent and something of the kind. And you will also know that it is representing a year against maybe some percentage or against some values that are there. Then the other one we also look at, it is easy to draw. They are easy to draw since they represent only one single item. The advantageous part of it is that in most cases, these bar graphs or line graphs, you'll find that they will particularly single out one particular item, and that's what they represent. So it may not be it may be simple to represent because it's only one item. Unlike others where you have maybe others representing more than one item, like the circular graphs, which we shall later on look at. So it is important that we take up on some of these advantages. Now, for purposes of when you are asked to give the advantages, sometimes they give marks. For advanced level, I think from 2000, I think 2001 or 2000, I'm not very sure. I don't remember very well. They will always ask and they give the mark. Maybe say, what are the advantages and disadvantages? 4 marks. So ideally it would be 2, depending on how the examiner will have said it. But I encourage the students that you give more. If they say they have awarded 4 marks, give at least 3 on every side, because these advantages are simple. Like we have said, just an outline form of it. You don't need to explain by saying that, for example, that they are simple to draw, and then you start saying, because of this, you just outline them as you have seen them. So I would expect that every student should move to an examination knowing that he has these 4, assuming they have said anything related to that, you should be able to get these marks. Now let's look at some of the disadvantages that may be in line. Please, these advantages are both for line graph and bar graphs. The simple bar graph and the simple line graph, and you know that those two, it's only the difference of how to draw. The other ones use bar, these other ones use a line graph. The other disadvantage, the advantage you want to look at it may be hard to determine the scale, especially if you have not known the tactic. It may be challenging. So it becomes disadvantageous that if you give a wrong scale or if you make the calculation of the wrong scale, 1, it may either be hard for you to draw. 2, it may give misinformation in one way or the other. Or at the end of the day, it may also not give you what you require. Then the other one is that it is suitable for only a single item. We have said you can only use this method when you are trying to portray one item that has been identified. So it means that if you have been given more than one item, for example, when we look at others, you will find out that they can give you maybe 3 items. They can give you activities, crops, and then the time, maybe even the climate, which you cannot represent on this. So you may find that it is only and only advantageous to only bar or simple bar graphs, which becomes very hard for other interpretation in case they have given you something else. So it becomes tricky. So it becomes a disadvantage in that it only occupies one single item. Then the other one, that disadvantage you want to look at, is that shading the bars takes a lot of time as compared to the line graph. For example, for cases of bar graphs, we said that you are supposed to shade them. And by aspect of that, it becomes tasking, so it may take a little bit of time. So it becomes also a disadvantage. Then the other one is that if a lot of information is given, the graph may become overcrowded. So it becomes also a disadvantage in that it may take you a lot of time or something of the kind to do onto all those things. So those are basically what we can look at. So if they ask you to give the advantages and disadvantages, you should be able to give. If they ask you to give advantages alone, give the advantages and exhaustively give them. So we looked at this and we say they can give you figures which are like this, showing the particular things, and they ask you to draw maybe a table of this kind and then make the representation. These are giving particular and these are the figures. So they can ask you to draw bars. I wanted to use this advantage that we can take a screenshot and we can work out this work during our free time. Those of you who are around, because we're not able to give exercise, but it is good. And it's one thing I want to encourage every student. If you want to do mastery of statistics, please do practicals. And the practical part is for you to get and make calculations. Get a question book or a question bank from 2000 or from 1986. And then you can go through all of those questions. Whatsoever that we cover, look for a topic we have covered and do those questions. Because usually even at UNEB level, UNEB will never set questions which has never set. If you critically look at it, you'll find out one question has been set in 2000. After 3 years, it is again brought back. After 5 years, it's again brought back. So if you can get these question banks, they will be of help. Then go through. So I want to leave this to everyone. Please borrow time during your free time. You can take a screenshot. The information is there and work out on that and draw or construct a simple bar graph. We know what we shared and we know what we take. So we can work out on this and then be able to do. If there are no questions, I want us to switch on to another topic today. And these are what we are going as group or comparative. Sometimes people call them multiple line or curve graphs. So under here, we are going to look at two. We have group, or sometimes called comparative. Sometimes they call them multiple line graph or curve graphs. Now, what is important for us to note is that why do they call them group or comparative? Is that when you are drawing them, they are grouped. They are many, but representing a particular year, and then also in a particular year. Or they are lines. They are curves that are drawn in lines, but they represent the information. Please, I want to request you that you mute. The background is very poor. I want to request that those of you who have not muted, please do the muting. We are getting echo. We may not be able to listen. Like we requested, those of you who have not muted, please mute yourself. Thank you. So the reason as why they are called comparative line graph or bar graph is that they are used for purposes of comparison. You will find that you have many bar graphs or many line graphs, which are representing different information in different years or in different items. But these different items have specific things they are portraying. So the reason as to why is that they will always be drawn on one curve, but they want all of the examiner, or the requirement would be that you are having them for purposes of comparing one year to another vis-a-vis that particular item. So it is key for us to understand that when we talk about all of these things, or when we look at all of these things, we are looking at an aspect where a person is having a graph, but the graph is representing particular items of either a year or of a specific thing, but it is on one graph. So that is why they are called group or comparative. Now we have group bar graphs. We also have group line graph or comparative bar graph or comparative line graph. The procedures may be the same, but we shall try to go through them slowly. So in this, I said that in this type of graphs portray information which is complex. Complex in a sense that it is information which is more. It is not one item like we were looking at there, but now these are many. That is to say, they have got independent variables. For example, these may be years, months, and many dependent variables. For example, crops of various types with groups. However, more than one line graph are drawn on the same graph. That is why I have put in the brackets that these are called comparative line graph. And many others. So these ones help to give information. We are saying that the values of a given set of crops or crop produce in a given year are represented by drawing numerous bars side by side, and each crop of that year is represented by one bar in a group. That is basically what we look at under comparative. Let's look at what are the points to consider if you are to draw a comparative bar graph or a comparative line graph. One, we have said that this method is similar to that of the simple graph, except that here there are more than one line, or one line is drawn on the same graph, or a bar is drawn on the same graph. The lines must not touch on one. The lines must not touch on two of the vertical axis. Shall later on go through that. The vertical axis, you know, the one we are talking of. So if you are drawing line graphs, then they should not touch. They are like hanging. They move within. You draw them from one area after plotting. You should be able to draw one from another to another without them touching the both axes, which is on the right and on the left. And different colors should be used so as to distinguish one from each other. If you have drawn a line graphs, then these should be different colors. For example, if you have drawn one line representing a particular area, then it should be maybe in blue, another one in green. But remember that you should not use pens. The best would be colors, or if not, use the symbols. So that's why I'm saying that you should distinguish them by using different. And the other one is that crossing of lines should be avoided. So I'm having a lot of echo. We want to request you, please. Let's see, let's try to mute ourselves.
They sent back this.
So crossing lines should be avoided, so that you have to begin plotting starting with the smallest quantity. I don't know who is having a phone who was not muted. We are having a very bad echo.
But May 2022 next year.
Someone has not muted. We are having a lot of echo. I don't know. Just a minute.
Check and do what?
Okay. So that is what we were trying to say in all that. And then I beg on your pardon. This person is, I don't know who that one could be. Someone in Ateso is doing us a disservice. Amdala, are you online? Hello.
Okay.
Wow. I don't know whether the rest are having a challenge like myself. Trying to see how I can identify the person, but anyway, let's hope. So crossing lines should be avoided so that you have to begin. So you have to begin plotting starting with the smallest quantity. Sometimes it is not good for you to crisscross when you are working out on the line graph. So it is important that you start with a high, the smallest unit when you are doing all of this, and then you go to the highest when you start to plot. Then the maximum number of lines to be drawn on a graph should be 5. However, sometimes you may be given information or data which is more than which may be required. So in such cases, you may choose to give more than what it is, and then you have to use orders that can be available. For immediate interpretation, variables represented can be written on the line. For example, sometimes if you have line graphs, you can write on them if there are very many. But if they are for bar graphs, then you don't have. But for line graphs, you can write on each of them for you to be able to interpret that maybe it's for crop X or crop Y, something like that, or the year and something you give. Then, of course, you are supposed to get a convenient scale depending on the highest and also the lowest value. Those of you who were here last time, I remember telling you how we get this for you to be able to get to that point. So these, the other ones are line graphs, so these are bar graphs. The difference is that the other one are uses of lines and these are use of bar graphs. So these are also called as multiple bar graphs. Bars are grouped together for purposes of comparison. For example, total production of minerals in any particular year may be represented by graphs of a bar, shaded from side to side, each referring to one unit. The method of drawing the bar graph is the same. Like we said, bars are drawn touching each other, hence the name group. But a space must be kept between each group of the bars and must be of uniform. They must be of the uniform size. Then the other is that the bars are drawn vertically. We are going to look at the graph itself. And then we are saying that it is better and for purposes of impression and interpretation to draw the largest group of bars on the left, proceeding to a descending order to the right. The same order of components from left to right must be adopted for each group of bars. All bars should be of the same width. For example, the width of those bars should be of the same. You should not draw one having maybe of 5 centimeters and the other having 6. Then use different colors should be used. And then a title which is slightly named, the graph, scale, key, neatness, labeling, accuracy are very important. I'm just making a repetition because this is the same. It's only the difference. The other ones are bar and these ones are graph. Then, how do we construct? We are saying that some of the ways of constructing of this bar, all of these bar graphs, can be an aspect of us trying to look at them. One of them we are looking at here is you should be able to study the data carefully with a specific emphasis on the ranges. When the data is given to you, you must first of all know the data that has been given to me. How is it going to get fitted? How am I going to make the scale? So that you don't keep repeating and repeating, because one of the key aspects, especially at advanced level, is that a number of students waste a lot of time. Why? Because they have not planned. So look at the data, understand it before you can start doing anything. 2, choose the convenient scale, and we gave the solution. Consider the highest and the lowest figures given in the table. Divide it by the convenient number you want to use. Then for the horizontal scale, also consider the gap between the graphs, the group of bars of 1 year and that of the subsequent years. we are going to look at, I'm going to explain this. These are ways I'm going to explain them down there, that wherever there is one, for example, on the horizontal scale, which you draw from east, from one area to another, is that you should be able to leave some space that I'm going to explain when we reach the graph itself. Then plot the scales and draw the bars, lines accordingly. Then we are saying that the key is important onto this. Let's look at, for example, if these are the figures that have been given to us, as this is a UNEB question, 2002, and they are saying the table below shows annual cash crops for selected countries between 1980 and 1995 in metric tons. But here they have given you here in 1,000 and answer the question. And then the question is given, draw a comparative bar graph to portray the information in the table. Like I have said, part B, explain the merits and the merits. Of course, there was part C and part D, which I have not brought here. But assuming this is the information that is given. The key thing, first of all, we have to understand that there is a country and we have years. So when we have the two, then we must know that one will be represented. The years are represented on the horizontal, and then you'll find out that the countries will be also represented, because we must have the dependable and the independent. So now, using this data, I want to try to explain how we can draw in this. One is that we should first of all be able to write the title. And I told you last time that we get the title from here. I've said the table below shows showing annual crop production. So when we go to get the title, then we shall say a comparative bar graph showing annual copper production for selected countries between 1980 and 1995 in metric tons. That is what it will be. Of course, on this side, we know what we are supposed to represent, because the information which has been given to us is in thousands. So you choose the appropriate scale you want to use. Look at this. What is the highest? You'll find out that the highest is this 2488. So you use this to divide with what you want to represent on your vertical scale. So if you choose to represent 12 on this side, if you choose to use the 12 centimeters, then you will get the 2040, I beg your pardon, 2488. You divide this by 12, which will give you a figure maybe approximately to about 200 something. 1,900 something, which I have decided to use 200. So that one you will plot it on this side. So every 1 centimeter, depending, either 1 centimeter or 2 centimeters to give. Then on this side, we are going to represent years, and which years we have given. So after this, you will scale and scale and scale until when, if you say this is 2, 4, 6, 8, or 200, 400, 600, as you go on until the figures you want. After drawing this line, you also draw this line. So on this is the horizontal axis. This is the vertical axis. What we represent here are the years, and down here you should label it as years. And then on this side you should label as a copper production in thousands. Then we have our vertical scale. Which vertical scale we said? It is the VS, or vertical scale, equals 1 centimeter. If you decide to use 1 centimeter here. If you decide to use 2 centimeters, then you say 2 centimeters represents 200 millions or metric tons of copper production. Then the horizontal scale is now this one that we are going to use. When you look at this and this and this, I'm sorry that you should be able to see this color. This is also a color, this one. And this one is much more, it brings out. So this every bar is representing a centimeter. So this is a group. These representations are for the 4 units, but in 1980. The same, this is for 1985. This is for 1990, and this is for 1985. So what I was referring to is that you must leave space. Between every bar, grouped bar, there must be equal space. This space here, this space here, this space here, and also this space. That is why we are saying that these are supposed to be used as comparative. When you look at this is the representation for Chile. This was the production. But you also look at this and look at this. They give the same value. If you also look at this for 1980, this is 1985, this is 1990, and this is 1995, but giving a representation for China. So all these ones are groups. You can easily see them. So when you are through, like we said, you close this one, which must also be closed like here, and then also labeled like you do on this side. This side should also be labeled. So basically, that is what we do require of you. I want to stop here for a moment. I want to see where I'm seeing his hands up. Let me take up on some questions. This person is saying, please mute your phones. I think he has helped me. We're having, please mute Peter. The echoes were not coming from me. The echoes were coming from the participants. It is raining this side. Can I copy up? You will later on get this information sent on our. So I want to know whether there are people having questions. I'm seeing some people, I think, putting up, someone was putting up his hand. Can I see someone if one has a hand, if he wants to say something? Do we have any question? Okay, if there is no question, we are just only left with about 23 minutes. I want to give you something to do so that we also try to see what we can do of ourselves. So these are comparative bar graphs. Now, if they were line graphs, they would still be the same. We would plot here, and also plot here, and also plot here, and also plot here. And we would join this. We would join from here to here to here. And therefore, we should use that as a blue. And that will be a representation for one. We would also do the same. We would get where red is in the middle part of it, the red also here, the red also here, the red also here, and join. Now, this one would use a different color. Which color would be red for this case? And that is what we would do. We would do the same for this one. That is for line graph. But for, because I was not able to draw the line graph in time, but that is how they were supposed to work out on them. Okay, I'm seeing someone I think here has ready. Okay, it's telling me I should show how. Shamira, the space should be the same. For example, here, from this here should be the same from here to here. Should be the same from here to here. And it should be also the same. These spaces should be the same. That's the question she was asking. Let me see if I can identify some line graph. Maybe I can try to do something. Then I show you. I want to think time can be on our side. Some other person has a hand that is equinelistic.
Hey, sir.
Yes, go ahead, please.
I wanted to know what are the three things necessary in a graph work? What I wanted to ask is what three things are necessary for a graph work? For a graph.
What three things are necessary for a graph work?
For a graph.
I'm not getting your point. As in, are you meaning for construction or what is necessary for a graph? For
What
it to qualify to be called a graph?
What is necessary for a graph?
Okay. Now, at this level, at teaching level, what would be important for us to know is the title would be important, labeling would be important, and the representation. Those are the three. But like we have said, those of you who were here last time, at issues of at advanced level, when they are looking at your work, we have what we refer to as tanks, TANKS, and everything of that represents and it has a mark it gives you. For example, T represents title, A represents accuracy, N represents neatness, K represents key, and S represents scale. So if the requirement is that they have awarded, let's say 12 marks for that question, it would mean that the question allocation will be given. Let's say title will be given 2, neatness maybe 3 or 4. The other maybe key 1, scale key 1, and then actually it's also given 4. It means that for you, if you only concentrate to say, I want to give the key, since they told me it is the key 1, it may mean that you may not get all the points that, all the marks that are required for that. So the key things are the title, the labeling of both the horizontal and the vertical, but also the interpretation of what we want. Those will ideally take us to what we require. Then some other person is saying, teacher, what is meant with that space? Please, I request don't abbreviate when you are writing, because sometimes I may not be able to understand you. So Shamira, I'm saying, teacher, what is meant with that space should be the same number of bars. Let's say you are given 5 countries, then the space should also be 5 centimeters. I'm not getting the question very well, but I want to think maybe you are referring. For example, these bars here, maybe if this is what you are meaning. First of all, like I said, on the horizontal scale, when you are starting to, when you want to give the representation, or you want to start plotting and drawing, you should first of all know that how many bars am I given? How many units have I been given? For example, in this case, you have been given 4. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. It means that if you are going to represent for 4 years, you will ideally need 4, 4, 4, 4, which gives you 16 units. It means that you will need 16 centimeters on the horizontal axis. But remember that there is a space you are supposed to leave. If you choose to leave 1 centimeter, or 2 centimeters, depending on what you choose. So you 16 are the centimeters, but plus again another 4, meaning you will need 20. So you should be able, if you find out that you cannot use, for example, 1 centimeter to represent, then you can reduce them to 0.5 centimeters. It is allowed. In most cases, if the units go more than 5, then you should use you should turn the paper in a horizontal way. You face the paper instead of it being, it should be in landscape. I want to think you know what I mean by landscape. It should be not in portrait. Portrait is a paper being like this. But it should turn like this if it goes beyond 5 units. Because if there are 5 units and you are going to represent 4, it might be challenging for you. So you may have to churn the paper. Okay, I want to think I have. Can I use a pencil and a pen as a color in case I don't carry colors? That is Cindy, I think. Helen. Please, Helen, I want to advise you, when you are going for any geography paper, whether paper 1 or paper 2, it is important that you carry the necessary materials. And for paper 2, one of the key things that you should carry are colors. Please, let's not choose to defend ourselves. Have the colors with you, at least, even if you can't. It's an examination. It is something that is going to determine your future. Carry 3 or 4 of them, because if you are able to have 4 and maybe the representation is more, then you can use a blue pen. However, the challenges of using a pen is that you cannot rub it. So I too much advise that students should use coloring and pencils to do out on the coloring of any work. That was thanks. I have now gotten the difference between line graph and bar graphs. Okay, that one is okay. Let me hope I will be able to finish up your question. The line graph, we don't leave space. The size of the bar, we answered that one. So the space about the bar is equals to the bar. I explain. Show how the line graph. Let me see whether I can do it now. With the line graph, we don't leave space in between. With the line graphs, we don't have, because for them, they are projecting from one area to another. For example, in this aspect, you will have, let's say, remember these are the tops. If you are representing a unit, maybe it is 4,800, it will be here. And if you are putting for this, it will be 500. I mean 600 and something. For this one, it will be maybe 300 and something. And then for this one. So you will just draw this line from here. You will draw the line from here to here to here. That will be a representation. Then you also get to the blue, I mean the red one. You also put here, put here, put here, put here. So in this one, there is nothing of that. You only join these lines and they go as they, but they are not supposed to touch this side, nor do they touch this side. So in here is where you are going to represent that the red represents China, the blue represents Chile, the gray represents USA, and the other one. That is partly what we have to say about that. Let's take on another question. I hope I'm able to finish it. Pen, I may be using a problem. Can you please share any question again? I'm going to do that. Thanks. I have now gotten the difference between the line graph. Can I use a pen and a pencil? In the case coloring, we have talked about it. Pardon on the question. I'm going to bring it. Mister, is it accurate to use colors to draw line? It's okay. You can decide to use a pencil and then redraw. But if you sharpen your colors, you should be able to draw them very well, which is okay. Should the size of each bar be at the same as in the spacing? I explained that yes, you should maintain that. I I did not get the question. I want to refer to the answer. I'm not sure of what you wanted. Shafiq, please resend your question. I have not got what you wanted to mean. Do we join the lines using a ruler? It is either way, but for neatness purposes, you can use the ruler. They don't blame you. Is it okay when the line passes through each other? It is okay, but I said you can avoid that by first representing smaller units. For example, if you use the smaller units representation, depending on what we are given, you should avoid that. But if it is okay, sometimes it's avoidable. It can crisscross, but we have said you can avoid it. Is it okay when you pass through each other? So I think basically those were some of the questions that were given. So someone has asked me, I want to give the work. So that is the question. If you can take a screenshot, please do it, so that during your free time you can work it out. I want to thank you, through. And then this one here is also another sample question. This is a question, UNEP question of 1996, which they say the table below shows the estimated number of vehicles on the road in Uganda in 1971 and 19. I beg on your pardon, it should be 1993 and 1997. I may have struggled, but they are giving us the year, they are giving us the types of vehicles, pickup, buses, minibuses, and cars. And this is the data which they have given to us. So if you are to draw anything, the first thing is that you must, first of all, be able to identify what you're going to put on the vertical axis, and also identify what you're going to put on the horizontal axis. Now, on the vertical axis, like we have said, we shall always and always have a representation among them. So we also take up this. I want to leave this as some of your work for you. So take a screenshot. Please feel free during your free time, work it out. I can give you my email. You can check, and then we look at it, and then we say it is okay. It might be hard. I would have loved if we had digging, we look at the email. I'm going to put my email in my chat, in the chat room. But ideally, that is how the bar graph will look like. We have the title, a comparative or group bar graph showing estimated number of vehicles in Uganda from 1971 to 1990. Here is number of vehicles. Here are the years. And these are the different representation for the different years. Depending on the scale, I chose to use 2000. But you can choose to use, depending on the units you want to represent on this side. Please, this labeling here are important. This is our key. So anyone who wants to interpret graph should look at this. So they should also be represented in the key, because it also acts as, or it gives us what? A mark. So I want to turn it there during your free time. Please do exercise for this work. If you still feel you want other data for practice purposes, you can also share on the email, and I can already send you, all on WhatsApp. I can already send you the data so that you are able to. Let me look at some person is raising up the hand. How about the line graph? Someone is asking me the line graph. Let me just ask, let me see if I can have something here. Line graph. Oh, just a minute. Just a minute, just a minute. I want to think I have one. So I don't know whether I will be able to project. I don't know whether you are able to see this. That is how line graphs will be. That is how line graph are supposed to be. I don't know whether you are able to see, but I was not able to have it quickly, and it may take me a lot of time. But let me see if I can use my pad to give. But ideally, that is how it all goes. So maybe for purposes, because I'm seeing time is, we are running short of time. If there are other questions that you have, I will share with you the line graph in the WhatsApp. In the WhatsApp chat we have, I will draw it and try to show what it looks like. Then someone is talking about compound line graphs. Compound line graphs are different. Compound line graphs add up to 100. So they are not I beg on pardon. They are not these other ones. Those ones we shall look at a later stage, but they are not these ones. They are comparative, not compound. Please, this one here is a challenge. It's not a compound, it's a comparative. These add up to 100. So those ones are the ones we shall go on to, not these ones. This is our next topic. But because of time, I want us to end there. But these are the comparative. What we have been looking at are comparative bar graph and comparative line graph. The next time we shall look at the compound, which are different from the comparative line and bar graph. For the compound bar graph, for them they total up to 100. Or you go on accumulating the figures for you to be able to have. So, but we don't want to look at them. Unless Josephine Nachito. Josephine Nachito, go ahead, please. Hello. Is Josephine Nachito having an issue? Okay, let's now work out on the master. Your email, my email. Let me share my email here. My email is I think it is time, and like we have said, we are going to break for 15 minutes, and then at 3:15 we should be able to start on paper 3. So at that time we should be able to start looking at another paper. Otherwise, it was a pleasure having you. Shamira has a question. Please put it in the chat room. And then we shall try to do everything. For those of you who have appreciated, it's a pleasure meeting you. Let's break off and then we shall come back at that time.